Well, all right. Good morning. Good morning. And welcome. I
The
don't know what
face,
happened just now, but that's all right.
the face for me.
Huh?
I said it was a face for me, like.
Yeah, well, I was waiting, but it never happened. That's okay. Well,
Mm.
good morning, everybody. And as always, good to see you guys and welcome to this month's episode of Reframing the Images of Relationships. As always, we're your host for this conversation. My name is Dwayne Dwyer. I go by the Mindset Coach, and I'm joined by Lisa Keys, the voice of reason, and Miss Nodella Sacagawea Jordan, the optimizer. It's been a month. How are the both of you doing?
Whew, thankful. Yes, it's been a month and I'm thankful. Yeah, I'm doing good, doing good. How about yourself?
I'm good. I am good. Miss Nodella?
Well, I'm on furlough for the weekend. Y'all know what that is. So
Just for the weekend. Just for the weekend.
just for the weekend.
Yeah.
But all is well. I am always glad to be here with you two. And I'm looking forward to today's conversation.
As am I. As am I. And I mirrored that. I always look forward to these conversations as well. Not just sharing conversation with you guys, but also sharing conversation with what I believe is the livest chat in social media. And if you're here, whether you're on YouTube, whether you're on Instagram, whether you're on Facebook, or whether you're on LinkedIn, by all means, get in the chat, get in the comments, and let us know that you're here so that we can acknowledge you. Because here we want to acknowledge you by name. Well, I don't think we do enough of that, and we want to make sure that we acknowledge you. So that being said, as always, and we greatly appreciate you guys. Nick D, good to see you and welcome. Crystal Everett, good to see you and welcome. His Divine Appointment, good to see you and welcome as well. Also, Miss Maya Jenkins Hobson, good to see you and welcome. Miss Charlotte Jordan, good to see you and welcome. And again, as you guys come in, just say hi in the chat. We just want to make sure that we acknowledge you because we value you being here with us on this beautiful Saturday morning. You could be anyplace else, but you chose to be here with us, and we do not take that lightly. So yeah, absolutely. So any thoughts you guys want to share before we kind of get into it?
Man, I was thinking about you this because this is part two of this discussion. So just thinking about how we're continuing to unpack this, and it's so much that we have to continue to learn. So I'm just excited to have the conversation and to see what God brings out of it. I'll say that.
Yeah, you and I both. Miss Nodella?
I just want to remind our audience that this really is a space of learning. And you are definitely going to learn if you're looking to grow. You are in the right place, definitely on this morning. So know that we value your time and that we are here to make sure that you are able to take away not just knowledge, but some actionable things, because we recognize that without application, it's just information.
Amen.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So that being said, we're going to go ahead and get started, and we're going to have fun while doing so.
Yes. I'm excited. I'm ready. I'm ready to see what we're going.
Absolutely. There you go. All right. It's I don't know, it's kind of hard to explain, but I think as we're getting ready to dive into this conversation, I think you guys are going to be just blown away. So that being said, welcome to Reframing the Image of Relationships. If you thought last month's episode was eye-opening, get ready, because today we're exposing the final 4 relationship lies out of the 7 that could be quietly sabotaging your love life. Have you ever wondered why your past keeps showing up in your marriage, or why chemistry seems to fade while real connection feels out of reach? If so, you're not alone. Research shows that 82% of divorced men admit unresolved childhood trauma shaped their relationships. And 41% of men, 41% of married men still feel lonely. These aren't just statistics, they're signs that what we believe truly affects our love life. Well, in this episode, we'll challenge the myths that our past doesn't matter, that chemistry isn't everything, that guarding your emotions keep us safe, and that marriage will fix loneliness. That said, if you're ready to rethink what you've been told about relationships and discover the truth that leads to real intimacy, your fresh perspective loads in.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Let's go.
Now, we had what I believe a phenomenal conversation last month. And again, I really think that there has been continuations, like just spurts of it as we move forward. But again, just to get everybody caught up, if you have not seen last month's episode, go ahead and review that. I'm telling you, go back and look at last month's episode, because in that episode, we revealed the first 3 lies and we talked in depth and in detail about them. So real quick, as a review, what I would like to do is just kind of work our way up to the point to where we are now. So lie number one was love should feel effortless. Lie number two was conflict means you're incompatible. And lie number three was my partner should complete me. And that brings us to the point to where we get to talk about lie number four. And lie number four is all about your past doesn't affect your future. Now, unhealed wounds tend to poison intimacy for the most part. And you heard me say it previously that 82% of divorced men admit unresolved childhood trauma shaped their communication efforts. And I think what we have to do is not only, because we talk about it all the time, and I have another show planned where I talk about the word heal, because that has become somewhat of a buzzword. Now, somebody probably got upset because I said that. That's okay. Just let it sit for a second. Um, I think as we move forward, what we need to realize is that our past, if we really start to think about it, is really a lesson. It's not a lodestone. It's not something that is supposed to be just carried and struggled. And as we get into this, I want us to kind of reflect on what Psalms 51 and 10 says. And just from the snippet of it, just create in me a pure heart, renew steadfast spirit. And remember, the word heart is not reflecting the thing that's beating in my chest. So the first question that I want to kind of tap into is what happens when we blame our partners for the resurfacing of old wounds instead of accepting responsibility for the unhealed past. Now, before I turn you loose, because I know you guys are probably ready to dive on this one. When we talk about the unhealed past, keep in mind the unhealed past could have been what happened in that relationship just as well as what happened prior to that relationship.
Okay. I guess I'll start off. I think that anything that you're holding on to, first of all, is not going to, and if it's just something that is detrimental to the relationship, that it's not going to be a healthy environment. That's first of all, right? So if something has happened in the midst of the relationship, as you explained, and it's unresolved, it remains unresolved, it can begin to diminish the relationship that you're in. So, and it perpetuates this cycle of some people like to stay in that place because they want to be a victim, right? So some people want to stay in that place of unhealed, so I can blame you, versus doing the work that is required for you to move past that healing. And you know what unforgiveness does in any individual, right? It begins to slowly deteriorate whatever relationship that you may be in or have, friendship, otherwise. And so I think that when you don't do the work and you're casting blame, it's you saying that I'm comfortable here and I don't want to do the work to be uncomfortable.
So, to the point of this question of what happens when we blame our partners for the resurfacing of old wounds, and to that point of you don't have the right to blame them. The only way we can stop triggers is by healing. And so the latter part of this is instead of accepting responsibility for the unhealed past. So my thought process went to, and this is a question for the audience to consider, not to answer live. First and foremost, why do you even want that relationship? Secondly, what is your expectation from that relationship? If those questions point back to me, myself, and I, then I suggest you not get in a relationship. And to Lisa's point, I'm talking about friendships, and you might want to kind of pull away from family as well, because what's going to happen is that to blame others for something, first and foremost, that they had no part in. Oftentimes, you're blaming people for something they had no part in. They weren't even there. They don't know anything about it. And you're looking to them through the blaming to provide you some kind of solace or whatever, pity, I don't know. But that's really something for a licensed medical professional to deal with. And so if we care about the individual and the relationship itself, even before we enter into it, we should really consider seeking out professional help, medical professional help, to work through those issues.
Yeah, I don't disagree with anything you guys said. But I kind of want to go back to the blame our partners piece. Um, as it pertains to the resurfacing of old wounds. And I highlighted like what happens in the relationship intentionally, as well as what happened prior to the relationship, because a lot of times we don't necessarily do the work on ourselves that needed to be done before we got into a relationship. We just move from partner to partner, thinking that the next partner is going to make things a whole lot easier. But really, what we're doing is we're saying that I want the patience that my partner have to be the bridge for me to figure it out myself. And that's not necessarily, I don't want to use the word fair, but that's not necessarily right as it pertains to what relationship really is all about. So, a lot of times in the space of relationship, you'll see the manifestation of those old wounds based upon how a person responds to certain things. A lot of times they become, I don't want to say over, they talk in a particular manner that tells you that there's something behind what is going on. A lot of times in the space of, and I just use this one, in the space of correction, some people don't like to be corrected. But if that's the case, then how do we relate to the other person? In what manner and what capacity? So, a lot of times you find when correction happens, that person responds in such a way because their feelings were hurt, not just because the thing that was talked about wasn't true. Their feelings was hurt because they don't want you to correct them. So the work that we don't do will not make it possible for us to be in the space that we need to be in the current state of our relationship, let alone for the future of what the relationship can hold. So I think it's important for everybody to kind of, do a assessment of themselves, scan themselves, right? If something, as we used to say all the time, trigger you, if something triggers you, instead of responding according to the trigger, why don't you ask yourself, why does it trigger me? It doesn't really matter. And I use myself back when I was younger, when I went to basic training, right? If I needed people to speak to me in a kind way in order for me to receive what they say, I never would have made it through basic training. Because I promise you, not one drill sergeant there cared about how you felt about what they said. So I think a lot of that exists in the space of relationship. Not that we talk to one another as like drill sergeants talk to each other, but we focus more on how a person says the thing to me as opposed to the thing that they're actually saying to me. And those words can reveal something in you, more than one layer, to be honest with you. It can reveal your perspective of yourself because you shouldn't be talking to me that way. So that might say something about you. But then the other part is that you also feel like, well, they should just get over it. They shouldn't have to address everything, quote unquote, everything. And you know how we do when we use those general terms that are all inclusive. It's really not a factual assertion. Your thoughts or perspective on anything that was said on the panel so far?
Just two things that I was listening to as I was I know you gave statistics about men coming into relationships, 82% of them. Did you have statistics for the women who come into that relationship?
I do not. I did not. I did not go research them, but statistical data is there, as we
Okay.
already know.
Okay, so I wanted to say again, in every relationship, I'm not going to just pinpoint marriage, right? But in every relationship that we're in, there is an opportunity, and I think as well as responsibility to pray for each other, but have those conversations as well. I think that's really important, right? Because you can't pray over confusion. So I think that you're not saying that your partner's going to be out there and left out there and deal with your own stuff. If things come up, you address it, and then they have to do the work to do it. But you can pray for them, let them know that you're there, you're available. If they have any questions, and then even give some direction. Maybe you may need to go through counseling, like Miss Nodella said. So those are some of the things that I thought about. And the other thing is, because this is a hot topic, this is a touchy subject, your tone, right? Receiving information. As you use the example of that when you went to basic, right? And that how you received information. So for a lot of people, and especially women, tone is what we focus on. Like you said, instead of focus on what I'm saying, you're focusing on how I'm saying it, and that does not help us move forward. So I think that was a good point that you made. I just wanted to add that.
And I add to what you're saying, if I can, before you go, Miss Modella. Um, Tone don't just matter to women. Tone matter to men as well.
Okay.
Because I'm telling you, like, like if you want to see the wheels come off the bus, like talk to the man like he your child. That's all I'm saying. The minute that he detect that, it's going to be a response that it may not be good. That's all I'm saying. Go ahead, Miss Nodella.
Okay.
So my mindset went to how the individual was brought up regarding responsibility. If you were not trained from a child to be responsible for your actions, that grows up with you, and you bring that into every other area of your life. And to what Lisa is saying is that we're not just focusing on marriage, because if you can't keep a friend, that might be a red, yellow, and green flag right there. Why can't you keep a friend, but yet you're looking to get married? So again, my thought process in what both of you say or have said, and to add to that, is if you were never made to be responsible for your actions, your behavior, for anything as a child, if you weren't even just properly taught, again, that grows up with you and you bring it into every area of your life. And it is definitely harmful to friendships and to intimate relationships. And I still go back to, and Lisa shared in one of our previous broadcasts, slow down. Slow down. I know you may feel that time is working against you. The clock is ticking, but you're not racing against the clock. And because we feel we are rushing into various relationships, and that includes even business relationships. I made some rushing, call myself making a business decision, and it cost me. So again, this spans across every possible relationship that we can have, and we just have to step back. But the work starts with us first of, am I in the right place to even have this kind of relationship? Again, business, whatever. And going back to Lisa, we just need to slow down. I know the world is pushing everything faster and faster, and we're trying to keep up with the pace of society. That's the other thing. Hopefully I'm not derailing or going off, but society has created this pace as well. You got to hurry up and do everything. Hurry up or you're going to lose out. Hurry up, hurry up, hurry up. Well, I look at it as what's in this is, I believe, is factual. What is for you, it is for you. And so we just need to slow down, as again, as my dear sister said.
Yeah, I agree with the slow down perspective. I think because you know how I am, I'm an advocate of words mean things. Um, there can also be a slight undertone that we have in the midst of communication. Um, and I think that becomes problematic as well. When we have these little undertone, when we take these little micro jabs at one another during conversation because you feel that this person should have done this or they should have done that or they should have known this or whatever that looks like, that itself it creates tension within the space of relationship. Again, when we go back and understand what relationship is and what relationship is all about, our responsibility is within ourselves. I am responsible for my own behavior, and if I can accept that and stop believing that I have, how can I say it? That I am in the space of relationship, and whenever you don't do what I think you are supposed to do, then my response is this. Well, it's not that. Again, responsibility here, accountability here. That's it. So if I am accountable, right, to my partner for the, I'm sorry, if I'm accountable to my partner for the sake of what they're responsible for, and as long as they've accepted that as a responsibility metric, which means that in the beginning we had to have a conversation, an honest conversation with ourselves about what we understand relationship to be and what doctrine governs that perspective of relationship. Like I was saying backstage, if your doctrine comes from the Bible-ish, right, which means that there's some aspects of the Bible you believe in, some aspects of the Bible you don't believe in. And for the aspects of the Bible that you don't believe in, those are unwritten rules that exist only within your head. So now you're dependent upon me to actually understand the doctrine that doesn't exist, and you get to articulate it to me every step along the way whenever I step out of line. Well, that's not a place. That's not a relationship, right? That is a connection that exists within the span of manipulation because you get to alter it whenever you feel like you want to. So I think all of this comes to bear when it comes down to this particular question, because the work that you had not done in the past cannot help you now. And so you're thinking and believing and hoping that you're this great and wonderful person. And, I have a philosophy like nobody's as bad as they think they are, but nobody's as good as they think they are either. You're someplace in the middle. At least that's where you're supposed to be. Well, if I don't recognize that space, if I don't recognize that, then what I will do is I will put on this facade, hoping that you believe that I am this person. But then if you spend enough time with me, you'll realize that the advertisement was false. And so now when you come to me talking about say, hey, this is what you told me, but this is what I'm seeing. Well, nobody's perfect. We're not talking about perfection. We're talking about the conversations that we had that led to this point. So that's just kind of like my addition to what you guys were saying. I greatly appreciate all that you were saying. Um, let's see what they're saying in the comments, because I was seeing a lot of things being posted. His divine appointment said projecting in relationships brings conflict and puts the relationship at risk. And then she continued to say it also elevates the other person from being accountable for their own actions. I think not only do I believe that that is true, I think you see a lot of that, especially now, to where we don't want to be accountable for the things that we're doing. We don't want to be accountable. Like if somebody says something about what they observe, your initial response is to what they said, as opposed to recognizing that what they said was actually based upon what they observed, and own the fact that you did it, own the fact that you said it. Instead of owning that, you feel more empowered to respond to that person, and I think that, to me, in my opinion, is problematic. You guys disagree with that, or have a different? Okay, great. Next, Miss Charlotte Jordan said, we will continue the behavior even if we move on from that relationship, because in our mind, it's gonna always be someone else's fault. And that's part of the accountability piece, right? So I'm glad she said that. Miss Shanithia Burns, good to see you and welcome. Miss Adrian Walthour, good to see you and welcome as well. So yeah, let's kind of move on to the next thing, because I think the next thing is important for us to understand, and that is called spiritual neglect. I'm not sure if we actually talked about spiritual neglect here on this platform before, but spiritual neglect is a failure to care for and engage in one's spiritual well-being. It's often characterized by a lack of spiritual disciplines like prayer, Bible study, and ultimately resulting in spiritual weakness and vulnerability. Signs can include a loss of passion, increased distractions, feelings of emptiness, and emotional distress. This state makes individuals more susceptible to temptation, doubt, and a hardened heart. And in a biblical context, it can lead to a spiritual distance from God and a weakened faith. So, all of that being said, I want to kind of ask this question on top of that, and I'm going to keep that scrolling at the bottom so they can continue to see it. The question here is, given the concept of spiritual neglect, what would you say to someone who comes to you for advice as they are attempting to marry someone without addressing past wounds?
I will stop them immediately. And if they are not willing to address those unhealed wounds, I would not move forward with that. One, I would be doing them a disservice. And then two, God is going to hold me accountable as we understand that what marriage was created for, and it is never his will that we get into unhealthy relationships, let alone marriage itself. And so I, in, if you will, good conscience, I would, if they refuse to get any kind of counseling, whether it's from me or someone else, I would not move forward with that. And the church has adopted, for those who will take advantage of it, that you, if you ask them, you do have to do counseling with them. And that should be a practice with every single individual who's in a space to offer counsel that has the ability to marry two people.
I think I know for sure having the honest premarital conversations and counseling is good. It's not just good, it's actually detrimental to your relationship. Um, and I think that if anyone enters a relationship unhealed, that they are intentionally causing harm to the other person. And I think it undermines our covenant relationship that we're entering into, right? We're not supposed to enter into anything into a covenant relationship, because the word of God teaches us that keep your heart with all diligence, from out of it flows the issues of life. That's Proverbs 4:23. And so if we're entering anything with them and understanding that we're entering into it in deception, because we know that we're unhealed, and we're having a conversation, or you're talking to the individual who understands that you still have some work to do. The best advice that we can give them is take your time, go get counseling, talk to the person who you want to be in relationship with, and be honest. And so, I mean, I think that's the advice I would give.
I'm I would be a little slow for me initially, depending upon the individuals. So
Mhm.
if it's a man, I would be a lot less slow, right? But I would ask some questions that lead up to it because I really don't think he is going to come to me saying that they didn't address past wounds. And I don't think he's in a space to say whether or not his partner that he is going to marry have addressed past wounds. So it'll be an individual thing first between he and I, but I will first talk to him and ask him what advice did his father gave him. That would be the first question I would ask him. Like, what did your father tell you when you talked to him? Because I do not want to believe that I supersede the voice of his father in his life. That's for starters. Secondly, once he shared that with me and he is still willing to talk to me, then we can go into a more in-depth conversation. But that conversation is going to be about him. Like he can tell me whatever he want to tell me about her all day long, but we're going to talk about you either in response to what you perceive her behaviors to be or in response to what you perceive yours to be. And then after that, I would say, hey, let's both of us get together and talk. If it was her that came to me, I would call a female friend of mine that I know that is skilled in the art of doing this. I would not have that conversation with her, not because I can't, but because there's some things that I may not necessarily know. Now, don't I'm not saying that I would not. I most absolutely would, but there has to be some more understanding that I have as it pertains to her. However, regardless of male, female, couple, the only thing I'm talking about is what the word of God says, not how I feel about what you're going through. So when you share with me your perspective of this, I am sharing with you the interpretation of what the Bible says that we should be doing as it pertains to our everyday life. I'm not saying how I feel about the Bible, and I'm definitely not quoting scriptures to you, because I think that's one of the biggest things we do is we quote scriptures at people when people are trying to learn how to live life. They don't need you to quote scriptures to them. Well, thank you for knowing all the scriptures in the Bible. But at the end of the day, that's not what they need. They need a mature adult individual that's skilled in the art of this thing that they want to talk about, to talk to them in such a way that they have a better understanding of the life that they're trying to live together. And I think that's the key. The key is that understanding that they want to pursue this life together. Now, how can we move forward with it? I can have one-on-one conversation with the man, but again, it has to at some point bring her to the conversation, not just for a one-time interaction. No, this is a developmental piece. Why am I starting out with him? Because you're not gonna like it. He wears the crown. So when I'm starting out with him, I want to make sure that the one that the Most High is going to hold accountable is in order. Understand what he is undertaking. Do you understand this? Do you understand that? What would happen if this, that, this, that, this, that, and the third? Ask the difficult questions up front, because if you have an exit clause, don't get married. I'll say it again. If in your mind you already have an exit clause, y'all stop pursuing marriage. Y'all not ready. And again, it's not me judging them. It's just me understanding where they are in their minds mentally. And you already have an escape plan before you go in, then why go through it? So those are some of the things I would talk about. Is that everything? Absolutely not. Is that 100% across the board a blanket that I throw on everybody that comes in? Absolutely not. But that's my initial response just simply to this question. You guys' thoughts?
Well, no, you answered as a professional counselor. You answered that very, very technically. But no, there were a few things that I thought about as you said that, and I'm glad you brought those out. Right, when you are engaging with anyone, whether it be male or female, there is order, and then entering into someone's covenant relationship. The first person that we have to point them back to, as you said, is to the Father, right? The one who's they're going to get their instructions from. So I thought that was very good and for us to be mindful of, as you know, you are in a in a professional capacity that you're in, and as us as believers, we're all ministers, right? And so when we come and we have conversations with females, we're usually pretty transparent, and we're talking, and we're pretty comfortable talking to each other once we've been in a relationship with each other. Some people don't even care; they'll just just some women will just talk to you because they feel comfortable having the conversations, right? But that's what we have to be careful to give our interpretation, right? That's what we have to be careful, and make sure that it's not our perspective or what we think or how we would do it. And so I think that's very important as well.
Y'all are talking good. I think it's time to pass the collection plate.
You know what? but see, I think this is important. And I like the fact that you brought out the conversation in a professional capacity. I think one of the things that we mistake, we think that all professions, if it's in this category, all of them are equal. They're not. And let me say it again. All of them, they're not. If you're just going to a regular counselor, that regular counselor has a job that they're going to do. Going to a regular counselor is fine, but going to a regular counselor, like, their job is not to prepare you for marriage. Their job is to actually do what the code of ethics for counselors say as it pertains to what you went to them for. That's a lot of the things that we see. We just like to throw a blanket over things a lot of times, and we'll say, well, go get counseling. That's great. I agree. Go get counseling. I think everybody should go get counseling. What kind of counseling? See, it's not just, it's not cookie cutter. What kind of counseling? Are you seeing somebody who has been trained and skilled in the art of this thing? Or are you just going to see a blanket counselor? Because they're out there, right? Well, I mean, that's kind of like what you'll end up doing. You'll take, well, my counselor said this. My counselor, don't come in my house telling me what your counselor say. Come in my house embodying what your counselor said. It's two totally different things. Just like don't come back home, but well, pastor said this. Go knock on pastor door and tell him make a seat at the dinner table for you, because that's what you're eating at tonight. I want to hear that. And I'm saying that jokingly, right? But I think that's where we miss the mark. We look at certain things and we think it's a cookie cutter and we can drape it across everything. That's not true. All counseling isn't created equal, although counseling is good for you. But what are you seeking counseling for? Let's start there, because a good counselor will say, hey, if you're coming to me for marriage counseling, that's not me. Let me pick up the phone and call somebody I know who is a marriage counselor, right? If you're coming to me for a bereavement counselor, that's not what I'm saying. Let me pick up a phone and call a bereavement counselor that can help you get over this state of mourning that you've been in for the past 7 years, right? All of these things we have to understand, like, and we were just talking about this, I think last week, when you have a lot of options out there, that creates confusion. So you have to know what you're looking for when it comes down to this thing. I need a marriage counselor that's skilled in helping people not only prepare for marriage, number one, help people who are already in marriage, helping their relationships get better. But number two, they have a biblical foundation to everything they talk about. If you're not that specific, then you mess around and get, Joe Blow, the counselor down the street and around the corner, and they take, snap. That's all I'm saying. So we just got to be completely transparent and honest with ourselves. If you can't articulate what you want from a counselor, you're not ready for counseling either. You probably need to do a little bit more time self-reflecting and getting clear and concise with yourself with what you're looking for from that person. Yes, ma'am.
So that's a good. I had a question for that then. So you said the person, if they don't understand that they need counseling, they need to sit for a little while longer, right?
If they don't know what they want from counseling,
they don't know what they want from counseling.
Correct.
So how would if there was someone who's listening who may be in that particular dilemma, what would be their first step then?
Every good counselor should allow the person to have what we call a consultation, which means that we will sit down and talk for free for that period of time so that we can come to some type of understanding of what it is you're looking for. Then by the time you hit the end of that conversation, that counselor should be saying something to you that says, so what I understand you're saying is you're looking for a counselor who meets this qualification, has this background, and does this, so that they can package it together and clearly articulate it to you so that you can make the most appropriate decision for your life. And at the end of that, either they say yes or no. And if they say no, that means, me as a counselor, I missed something. That means I need to go back and ask more questions. And I'm not going to charge you for my misunderstanding. At that point, we're going to continue, because that's a 30-minute talk. So at that point, what I don't understand, now I'm not going to charge you for that. We're just going to keep going until I get a better understanding, because someplace in the midst of this conversation, I missed something. Maybe I didn't ask the right question. Maybe I didn't hear what you said in its entirety. So a number of things can be standing in between of what you're saying and what I'm understanding. Once we come to a clear, concise understanding, you should be able to walk away from that with an understanding of what, not only what you want, but what you need out of a counseling session, so that you can move forward in the direction of your life that you want to go.
So they have to have taken some time to maybe examine themselves and then have a plan moving forward to see what the next steps are.
You're going to have to.
Okay.
Yeah, you're going to have to do that. And not only that, you can't, and I'm saying you can't. One of the most detrimental things we did in our community is we had this mindset of that what goes on in this house stays in this house.
Yeah.
So what that has done over the years is that's created people who don't want to talk about what goes on in their house. Well, what do you think those children who were taught that, and that was kind of beat into their head, not literally, just figuratively, beat into their head. When they become adults, they have that same mentality to a certain degree. So getting those people to open up is very difficult. They're not ready for counseling yet because they're not vulnerable and honest enough with themselves. That's the thing. It's a relationship. It is a level of vulnerability and honesty that you have to portray in order for someone to actually help you gather those thoughts and move in the right direction.
So that's the 82% of the, the data from the childhood trauma that has been statistically. Yeah.
I can't confirm or deny that that's 100% of the 82%, but I
Okay.
believe it's a large portion of it.
Okay.
Great question, though. Thank you for asking that. Sister Nadella, you have anything you want to add to that?
No, you actually was right in the vein of when you reach the point of saying that you want to get married, going back to one of the things that I know doctors, if you will, complain or express concern about is that their patients are not honest with them. They come in, let's say for your annual physical. Well, Mr. Dwyer, how has this past year been for you? Do you have any concerns? Now, you was dealing with some heart palpitations about 3 months ago, and oh no, doc, I'm fine. I'm feeling good, and I'm feeling awfully spry. But then you go home and those symptoms have increased, and now you find yourself in the ER, and now they're telling you you possibly may need a heart transplant.
Oh,
Well,
no.
you could have avoided all of that if you was honest with your doctor. I want our audience to understand that when you do seek out, first of all, somebody to marry you, don't come with a preconceived notion, oh, they're going to judge me according to my past. You don't know that. Don't go to counseling with that same mindset. Oh, they're going to judge me, so never mind, I don't want counseling. You don't know that. But let's say even if there's some sense of judgment in it, it's only in the space of, I believe, many times, kind of like to get your attention if you are showing that you're not ready nor willing to change your mindset or your thought process, your mentality. You kind of still want to be there, but you're only going through the motions is basically what it will turn out to be. Nobody will be able to help you until you truly desire to want that help, not even for the sake that you want to get married, because simply you want to be a healed person, period. And that's for me what I've been doing for the past 25 years. I'm not becoming a better me for my potential future husband. No, because let's say, God forbid, we divorce, or God forbid he passes away. I still got to live with me. So make sure that when you are desiring to heal, to become whole, that you are doing it for yourself and nobody else. But the great thing about that is others do get to benefit that better version of you, but only do it for yourself. And so all the work that I've done and I continue to do, it's not because I want y'all to like me. It's not because I want to be in an in crowd or nothing. No, because when I'm at home by myself, that's just it. I'm at home by myself, and you might be out hanging with another crew of friends. So whatever you do in this space, make sure you're doing it for your betterment, because you are the only one who lives with yourself 365, 724.
Yeah, I love that. And to your point, I will add this one piece before we move on, because I think that's a key point, and I love Miss Charlotte Jordan's message here, stating that she was that person, because we being told that what goes on in this house stay in this house, and so ultimately you become an adult, you get in a relationship, and for a fact that you're struggling, and I'm not saying that this is her, I'm just using this as an example, but for a fact that you're in a relationship and there's some issues, some things going on. Let's be honest, you got different teachings coming together under one household. You got You got your daddy, your mama, who came from two different households of teaching, coming together and trying to figure that out. And then they taught you, and now you're trying to bring that into my household. And same thing with me. So you got at least 6 generations of teachers trying to exist under one roof. And the issue is that sometimes we struggle with trying to come up with a happy medium. Do we stick to the word? Do we compromise with the word? All of that stuff. And a lot of times that's where it exists. Well, the reason why that happens in most cases is because the forework wasn't done. And no one ever taught us that the forework should be done. And a lot of reason why they didn't teach us that is for a couple of reasons. Number one, affordability, and number two, exposure, right? We couldn't afford it. And number two, we just didn't feel right exposing what was going on. We knew some of the things we seen growing up wasn't right. And if I say it, it's kind of like me, throwing my family under the bus, and I ain't going to do that. So that's kind of like how those are the things that keep us stuck in those situations. And I know that's not for everybody, but for most of the people I know, it's not a lot of people that are exempt from that. And so when we look at this whole need to counsel, and I'm just going to say it, y'all don't come for me. It's Saturday morning, and I got all day. The church was supposed to be that for us. I'll say it again. The church was supposed to be that for us. But the problem is a lot of people that's in that have these quote unquote titles don't necessarily have the understanding of the title, what the entirety of the title means. So it's like all of those things exist. And I joke when I say it, you must know where your limitations exist as opposed to when it comes to calling, what you're called to do. Like you want to do what I tend to call purpose creep. Like you want to tend to creep outside of your purpose. We talked about mission creep earlier in Bible study, but purpose creep is when you tend to start creeping outside of your purpose because I want to do this here and I want to do that there. Listen, I'm gonna be honest with you. Everybody ain't called to preach. I'm gonna say, I'm sorry. It don't sound good. Everybody ain't called to preach. When I was finishing my graduate degree for pastoral counseling, what they said they wanted me to do for my practicum, I wasn't gonna do it. I'm trying to tell you, you ain't sending me to nobody NICU so I can talk to the family about what I'm just telling you the truth. I immediately picked up the phone and called my counselor and said, hey, what else you got? I'm not going to do that. So we laughed on the phone. She said, Mr. Dwyer, you've already pretty much done everything for human services counseling. There it is. Let's do that. The practicum for that was going to AA meetings. The best thing ever. I don't care who you are. I think everybody need to go to an AA meeting at least 4 times. You will learn a lot about yourself. Those are the most humble, God-loving people you will ever. If you've never met anybody who's been close to the point of losing it all, and I'm not talking about stuff, I'm talking about your life. And then they humble themselves and now they have a thirst. You'll learn a lot about where you are in your walk with Christ. You ain't scratching the surface until you step foot in a place like that and see where they are as far. And I'm not saying it from a state of comparison. I'm saying it from a space of like collective understanding, because we like to get in our own little bubbles in our own little niche. And this is what we do. And this is how we do it. And what we fail to realize is it's detrimental to the body of Christ, because we're really segregating ourselves to such a degree that we're creating more divide. Well, what does this have to do with this whole conversation? That's exactly what it has to do with this conversation. We had, growing up, division within our community. Let's be honest. What goes on in this house stays in this house, and how we do things is right. No, it wasn't. Stop playing. There were some things that were done right. I'll agree with that, but not the entirety of it. So we got to get out of that. We got to recognize like this, the body of Christ is supposed to be a place of healing, right? Pastoral counseling is a thing, and we're supposed to be able to sit down and talk to people as it pertains to the things that they're dealing with in life, as it pertains to the word of God. Not my opinion about what you're doing, not about what somebody told me and your uncle, daddy, sister, brother, cousin. I knew them from way back. None of that stuff matters. Let's listen to the heart of the person, take it to the altar, and let the one who can fix it, and not me, not Lisa, not Nodella, or anybody listening here can do it. If you don't know a person who has the ability to remove themselves out of the middle of the conversation that you're having with them and the one that the Holy Spirit is trying to have through you, that's not the person you need to be talking to. Okay, I'm off my soapbox now. I'm sorry, y'all. Listen, greatly appreciate you guys. You guys are awesome. I love what you're saying. I love the information you guys are putting in the comment section, because you guys are all over it. Nick D said, I received premarital counseling from church and it was still the incorrect information. I did not realize that at the time. And that's what I'm talking about. And it's a lot of that and they feel like, and I'm not speaking for Nick D because I don't know, but it's like they walk out of there, they're empowered and they want to practice what they're learning, right? And they feel like this should work. And then when it doesn't work, it's like, man, like that's no different than anybody else I could have talked to in my family. So it's just we got to get to the point that we have a heart for people, man. Yes, go
Can I
ahead.
add that comment? I just wanted to say, that premarital counseling, just the term alone, right? In every phase of us being sanctified and growing in grace, that's just us being human beings, right? But and if we're in an environment where we're married, then that does not mean that the growth and the work stops, right? So you have premarital counseling. You need to go through counseling throughout your marriage because you're growing, you're learning. God is teaching you. Some things are changing. There, I think sometimes that's where we drop the ball. We think, well, I'm married, so I don't need counseling. No, I just do not believe that is accurate. I think that it's a progressive journey that we have to continue. If to have a mediator sometimes in our relationships, there's someone that's trusted, of course. It's someone that you find trustworthy, of course. But I think that's so important. Throughout our, I don't care if you're married for 30 years, you're still growing. You're still, until we leave this place, we're going to continue to learn and grow, and God's going to continue to reveal things to us. So I think that is so important for us who may be going through seasons and ebbs and flows in our relationship. I just wanted to add that.
Nope. Greatly appreciate it. And you said something made me want to get back on my soapbox real quick.
Okay.
Real quick, I promise I'll be short on this one. We have this very false assumption. And that assumption says the attainment of a thing means that you're an expert at the thing. That is wrong. Not only is it wrong, it is grossly mistaken. Just because a person is married does not highlight that they're good at marriage. It could highlight that they've developed coping mechanisms to stay together. You know how many people I know that say I've been married for this long and I'm not gonna go back out there and start dating again. It's cheaper to keep them, and all kind of stuff like that, right? All that stuff exists, and I hate to say it, it for me it gets under my skin when a person believes that you have to be married to talk about marriage. Really? Have you read the Bible? I'm curious because the Bible is about marriage, is it not?
Yes.
I mean, correct me if I'm wrong. Y'all know. Okay. So
Yes.
if the Bible is about marriage and you have to be married to talk about the Bible, then it should not be, it should be very limited people in the pulpit. That's all I'm saying. We don't necessarily do any thought processing behind some of the things that we think. We get that, we adopted it from somebody else and we believe it. Don't believe that just because a person is married, they're probably good at being married to that person. And what happens if you go behind closed doors and be a fly on the wall, you'll realize that one of them probably got a great deal of patience. Because let me tell you something, I done been around some people I know is married, and I said to myself, there's no way in the world I'll marry you. Like you, man, listen, I'm sorry. Okay, I'm off my soapbox again. Listen, let's get back to the show. Listen, you guys are awesome. Greatly appreciate everything that you guys are saying. Keep putting your information in the comments. I know we're doing a lot of talking today, but I think it's necessary. But I also want you to know that what you're saying is valuable. And periodically, I can peep over there and pull some things out. So just keep them coming because it's a lot of great information. Point number 5, which we're not going to discuss today because we had a whole show that talked a lot about this, but it's prioritizing. No, bring it back up, please. But it focuses on prioritizing chemistry over character. So make sure that you go back to that. It's 2 months ago now, actually. And we did a great deep dive into this. So that's line number 5. So that takes us to line number 6. And line number 6 is all about guarding your emotions to protect yourself. Here's the reality. vulnerability breeds intimacy. You kind of heard us talk about that just a little bit. And so, statistically speaking, I know I'm giving a lot of men statistics, but I'm a man, so y'all bear with me. Um, Men who hide emotions are 3 times more likely to cheat or retreat. Now, I don't like the term cheat, but I got it straight out of psychology today. Um, Walls, we got to look at it from this perspective. Walls, although they may protect, but they isolate more than anything. And so, according to Brene Brown, she said vulnerability is the birthplace of love, belonging, and joy. So I want to start off with this question. I only got one question for this section, y'all. But for some odd reason, I just have this feeling. If vulnerability is the path to true intimacy, then why do we fear judgment from partners more than lifelong isolation? And remember, we kind of talked about previously, a lot of times people tend to focus on responding to the information as opposed to considering the information that was actually shared. So, your thoughts on this question?
So for me, we have to go back to our past. What is our foundation? If our foundation was built on lies and never corrected, and as an adult now, if you have not identified that that foundation is flawed, you continue to live according to that lie. So how do we break the cycle? That's a, I say, rhetorical question, but for our audience to consider, to even get to the point of being vulnerable, you have to recognize when you've been living in a cycle. Most of us in this world, well, actually, everybody in this world has been living in some form of cycle based on what you were taught as a child, whether it's a good cycle or whether what you were taught was good or bad. We still develop a type of cyclic lifestyle, whether it's on the truth or on a lie. But in each case, we have to be careful, as you shared not too long ago, Coach. We have to be careful that we also don't barricade ourselves in that one way or the other, because in each case, you're still blocking out more information to come in to help you to continue to evolve and develop. So we have to recognize the cycle or cycles in our life. They need to be addressed. Essentially, they need to be dismantled. If you truly want to be able to move into the space of vulnerability, I am talking about personal experience. I love this question because this is straight up my alley. This is straight up my street. Because although I was in relationships with men, I had the most fortified walls that anybody could ever have, even better than Fort Knox. But yet I still desired to be in relationships with these men. And watch this, I wanted them to accept me and my walls. I expected them to accept me and my walls, which that's not even realistic. And so at some point, I had to say, do I want a real relationship? Because that's what it boils down to. If you can't be vulnerable, you're not looking for a real, what I would call a real relationship, in that it has vulnerability at the core or the foundation of it. So, to this question is, if vulnerability is the path to true intimacy, why do we fear judgment from partners more than lifelong isolation? Part of it comes from cycles. Part of it comes from the pressure of society. Part of it even comes from just not even knowing, not having that knowledge. And I'll land there for now.
I just wanted to, I had some thoughts, of course, while we were talking. So, if vulnerability is the path to true intimacy. So, this one I thought was really good because it made me think about. I would think that being quiet and not saying anything was me protecting the environment, right? Not understanding that it was more harmful to the environment, because I learned when I was going through my counseling that I was stonewalling, and it's a term that's used for warfare. I think is what I learned during that time, and it wasn't harmful, and that my mate was not my enemy. So when we're entering into a relationship, we have to be mindful of our behaviors and some of the things that we're bringing forward. And I thought that the silence was something that was going to help, and it didn't. It hurt, and it was more harmful than anything else. And so that's one of the things that I learned about vulnerability, because I think a lot, and I think some of it, not a lot of it, I think some of it comes from the fear of, that this is wrong, right? But you don't have the tools, or you don't know how to move forward. You don't have the information that you need to correct the behavior that you are now recognizing that is in you, except for you read and you have this help and you have this outside source that you didn't have before. Like when I was at home, before I left my home and I was exposed to different environments, I begin to see, well, this ain't right. I've never seen this. I never experienced this. And then your imagination begins to open up and you begin to get some clarity that, well, some of these things that I learned were incorrect and they were not helpful for me. And that's one aspect of it as well. And then I think there's another aspect where you fear being rebuked. Well, it's better it's better on an open remand than to conceal love. So being loving someone and being their and being their brother and sister or friend, right, means that sometimes you're going to have to say to them that you're wrong, and you're going to have to openly rebuke them. That is a component of love. And we think that if we correct something or we say something that we're being mean. No, it's not being mean. It's jarring you into thinking. Listen, think about what you're saying, what you're doing. Take some time and examine yourself. And that's what we have to do oftentimes, for ourselves. Always consider our ways, examine, listen, and don't just immediately reject information because you don't like what's being said. If someone loves you and you can identify that you're in a relationship with them and they care about you and they're saying, maybe consider this, then maybe consider that. And then that's the extent of it. You don't have to consider it. You don't. But it would be beneficial to you if they care about you and they're saying, because we all have blind spots, right? So that if we can't see those blind spots, someone else who loves us, that's why two of us are going to walk together at all times. We were never sent out one by one. And so we are helpers one to another. And if you're around a good group of people who really care about you and can help you say, listen, you may need to consider this. That's maybe something you need to consider. And that's in our relationships. So I'll land there.
Now, I love what both of you are saying, and you're absolutely right. I'm going to jump straight to the answer first, and then I add a little context. And when I look at the original point of this question, why do we, for the most part, um, why do we fear judgment from our partners more than lifelong isolation? Twofold. Number one, my partner, I either idolize my partner or I want my partner to idolize me. If I idolize my partner, if they judge me, it'll crush how I feel because I want them to see me in a particular way. But if I want them to idolize me, the only thing that should ever come out their mouth about me are good things. They worship me. They tell me I look good in whatever it is I put on. They tell me I smell good whenever I walk past them. In fact, if they don't tell me enough, I ask them questions for them to tell me what I want them to tell me. And, the way society is set up, they ain't going to tell me nothing bad because they believe I get emotional about it. That's what I believe the reality of the truth is. Now, I also believe when it comes down to some other things, exist as well. I I also believe that there could be in some instances to where some children. I think this is mostly a girl thing than a boy thing, but it could be both. A lot of fathers don't like to discipline their daughters because it hurts them, like literally it hurts them to do so. And so ideally they leave it to the mother. And so dad is going to tell them all the, sugar and spice and everything nice stuff, right? Well, and conversely, the mamas do that for the son because the daddies are supposed to be. But now when you look at the preponderance of the population, it's less fathers in the home, then the daughter, like she is the one that's supposed to be trained by the mother, but the son, although, there is some training that goes on, it's difficult for the mama to teach the boy to be a man. So those young men, although, and this is for both parties, not just one, by the way, because both children, boy and girl, need both parents. But those young people go into relationships and they end up, as they get older, expressing the thing that they learned at home through their development, growth and development in the space of relationship. But keep in mind, it begins early when they don't care how you feel. Literally, you ugly. Yeah, y'all heard that in high school. Stop playing. You ugly. That's kids didn't care how you feel. So you want to be liked a lot of times because at home it's not really, it may not be good. And then when you go to school, now it's like you ugly. So it's like all that stuff is happening. And so now there's some insecurities that said, and y'all laughing because y'all done heard it. Y'all probably was the one telling them folk, y'all need to repent.
That was
Right?
that was the
So now
Not me.
insecurities insecurity has set into the young adolescent child who grows and blossoms into an adult, and then the adult is still insecure. But then when little Timmy sees her as an adult, like, oh my goodness, like you have changed a lot, but she is still insecure because she has never overcame that insecurity. And it works the opposite as well. It works the same way with young boys as they grow and start playing football and all that other great stuff, so forth and so on. So I think a lot of times the fear of judgment carries a lot heavier weight to the person's lack of security than the lifelong isolation. Because in lifelong isolation, the only person I got to worry about is me. In vulnerability, now I got to worry about how you perceive me. And that's part of the issue in my mind. And if I can incorporate some of these questions, like I'll start with his divine appointment, like how do you stay married to a person whose primary issue, who is the primary issue, I'm sorry, and refuses counseling? Well, I will start before that. How did I get married to a person like that? That's the best place to start, right? As opposed to addressing it after getting in it. Then I get married too soon before I got the opportunity to learn who that person is and, understand something. There's also an assumption that exists in this question that that person is the primary issue. Could it possibly be that some of the issues that I see from that person is a response to some of the things that I'm expressing in the relationship as well? So I think when I conclude that one person is a primary issue, I'm eliminating a lot of the variables off of the table. And then the aspect of refusing counseling, am I going to counseling? Number one, am I modeling that as far as counseling? And am I attempting to bring some of the things home that I learned from counseling and lay it on the table and be honest with that person? So even in this question, there can be some assumptions that guide this question. There can be some assumptions that are actually made. And there could also be some vulnerability that is not actually shared when it comes down to this question, just in the question alone. Right. And then that takes me to Maya's question, which I think is great. Could fear of judgment from your partner be related to an ego thing? It absolutely could. That was the part in the beginning. I want you to tell me only things that make me feel good. I want you to tell me that this, I want you to tell me that. But lo and behold, if you ever tell me anything that do not coincide with how I see myself, that means you don't like me. But the Bible says God chasteneth those whom he loves. So we have adopted this worldly perspective of love and reject the biblical doctrine of what love reveals. And that's the thing that I struggle with a lot. So I love this question because she is absolutely right. It can reveal the ego thing. In most cases, it is the ego thing. So I don't know. Sound like I got back on my soapbox again, but let me pause and let y'all say something because y'all know how I can get.
I do like like that. And it made me think to the question, the one you put up for Michelle, his divine appointment, the one you put up for her. It made me think about us making sure that we identify God's characteristic in each other. So it's our responsibility to continue to do the work, to be the example of what God says this is what a wife looks like and should behave and carry herself. And this is the instructions that I have given to the husband. Now, if he hasn't taken his time and he's not in he doesn't have a relationship with God, then that means, as you said earlier, that maybe he hasn't taken the time to understand who he is supposed to be as a leader and a husband. And so there's a lot of variables in this particular question that you have to consider. And we as women, it's our responsibility. I'm just going to talk about women for a minute, to continue to be the example and learn what God has instructed us to do and to be if you are desiring to be a wife, because you should be one before you even meet your mate. And that's just, I wanted to add that as well. But we're not supposed to go and look for no mate. We're supposed to identify God's characteristics in each other. And I just wanted to add that.
Absolutely. Ms. Nodell, you have anything before we move on?
Just quickly with regards to his divine appointment, I was actually in this exact situation. And as a believer, my stance was I just prayed about it until God instructed me to move, whatever that move was going to look like. And so, you also mentioned about did you even take the time to know that this was about this person? There was signs, but going back to, even our conversations, we get caught up in, oh, he looks good, she looks good, they're a good worker, they smell good, they can cook, they can do all these things. And so for me, I proceeded ignoring the red flags, because at the time I didn't even know what a red flag was. I figured over time, we'll just learn to work through it. To, even what Lisa said earlier as well, is there should be counseling, not just prior, but even during the marriage as it is needed. And he never wanted to go to counseling at all. And you can't force the individual to go to counseling. I did go for myself to see where I could be contributing to the issue, because to your point, a lot of times we say, oh, well, it's them. There's two of you in this marriage. And although we like to toot our own horn of saying, well, I've done all that I can do, how can you do all that you can do when you don't know all that there is that you can do? Yeah, I know. That's not possible, that you've done all that you can do. You've only done all that you know to do, because there could be other things that we can do that we're just not aware of. And I believe that is where that counseling piece comes in, at where it may, say, hey, have you thought about this? So we just go back to the point of what we're saying is slow down and do your homework. Slow down and do your homework. If Here Leave says, well, I can't wait any longer, guess what? They were not your person. And you should thank God that they left.
I love it. I love it. Man, I just looked at the time. We got one more point though. One last point. We made it to number 7, y'all. I appreciate everything that you guys saying right now. And I think number 7 is a very interesting one. Marriage will fix it. Whether we're talking loneliness, financial burdens, etc., you name it. Here's the reality. Loneliness is a soul issue, not a partnership problem. Statistically speaking, 41% of men feel lonelier when they get married than after after they were single, as opposed to when they were single. That's actually according to a Yale social health study. And so the key insight here is that if you're empty alone, you'll be emptier together. Additional requirements, more things for us to consider. And Psalms 68:6 says, God's sets the lonely in families, not replaces himself with them. That is a snippet of him. So I'm curious because I think we see it all the time, and social media has made a big deal about this. What are your thoughts on getting married when there's financial baggage? And how do you define financial baggage?
I won't do it in that whether I am to be the answer for his financial woes or he's to be the answer to my financial woes. But also, that is a conversation we're going back to that vulnerability, not only transparency, but vulnerability. Can I have an open and honest discussion with him about that I'm $150,000 in debt? Or am I going to hide it from him, wait till after we get married and say, oh, here, 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 here? You definitely are on track to creating the newest record for having the shortest marriage. Because don't nobody want to be bamboozled. If you really love that individual, and going back to your intentions of why you want to get not necessarily get married to them, but just getting married in general. If your intentions are pure, if your relationship you have been building it through conversations of learning each other, again, going to transparency and vulnerability, nothing should be off the table. But I do say timing. Also, I wouldn't say just throw everything out there on the first, second, or even fifth date. Work your way up to it. But I would say disclose as much as possible that could help the relationship. Again, to wait until after you get married and say, oh, I'm $150,000 in debt, and you just spent 25 on a wedding. That man might be, I'll take the $25,000 hit, but I'm not going to take that $150,000 hit. Or again, vice versa. So I just think going back to, transparency, vulnerability, and honesty, that always must be somewhere at the forefront, in the middle of the relationship and your conversations, if you really care about that person and you want to be married to them and you want to spend the rest of your life to them. So I'll stop there.
I think this is like a jam-packed question because there's so many thoughts to come to mind, right? But the first thing is a conversation. If you are having thoughts about, being together and joining your life with the individual, you have to have the financial conversation, because I think finances is one of the top three reasons for divorce, right? And so if you're entering into a relationship and you're not having this conversation and you are doing it in a deceptive manner, and if you are entering the conversation and you know that you have some debt, do you have a plan? What is your timeline? Do you have a budget? What are your goals? How do you plan on resolving the debt that you have? And these are just conversations that we have to be honest and we have to have, right? But it doesn't mean that maybe the person says that, well, I don't want to be married to you with this debt. And that could be a choice that you can't take from them. You can't say that I'm not going to share with you that I have this issue going on. So that's entering into the relationship in a deceitful manner. And you have to have these conversations because it's important. Because like Ms. Nodella said, you are setting yourself up for disaster. And so if you do have debt, and most adults do, have the conversation. What is your plan? What are you going? How are you going to resolve it moving forward? And is this something that you think that you can, join your life to? It being practical.
Yeah.
Can I just pop right back on real quick? I also
Sure.
wanted to add, because I saw Crystal's question come up, let's not leave out child support. That's also fine. I'm not just talking about credit card debt, car note debt. Let's not forget child support, alimony, things of that nature as well.
Okay. No, I thank you both for sharing, your thoughts on this. I'm gonna start off with Crystal's question because I think it's clear. I think we need to understand that part first. Financial baggage is not debt. Again, financial baggage is not debt. We need to we need to have a better understanding of the money game first and foremost. So the question that in my mind is, do you understand how money works? If you don't understand how money work, therefore you mismanage money, then that is my definition of financial baggage. You do not have like it's a big difference between, and I think it was somebody said something about student loan. It's a big difference between student loan debt and credit card debt, right? Student loan debt is probably the best. And I'm not saying, I'm not advocating for going out and getting student loans. But if you're gonna get some cheap money, that's the best cheap money to get, right? Now, let me also say this. Credit card debt isn't bad, especially if you know how to use credit cards, right? That's the key. A lot of people don't know how to do it. Now, number one, are we going to be vulnerable enough to express the debt that we've created prior to making a lifetime commitment with the other person, right? Are we going to say, hey, just so that you know, this isn't from a place of baggage, but I have some debt. And here's what the debt look like. I own a house, I own a car, I'm doing this, I'm doing that. The next question should be from that other person is how are you managing that? You know what I'm saying? Are you okay? Blah, 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 this, that, and the third. Because here's the deal. I think a lot of times we hear financial baggage and when we think it's debt, and we're assuming that just because we're saying financial baggage, this person has a mountain of debt that they can't handle, therefore they're getting married so that the unity between the two, we both can tackle my debt. No, that's not necessarily what we're saying. When you say baggage, baggage is something that is holding you down, that is preventing you from moving forward in life because you're working just to pay debt. That is all. And let's be completely transparent. A lot of us, to some degree, is in that we're in that category. So now, when we go back and entertain that question, and I think Sister Nodella, you said it first, and I think Lisa, she kind of continued along that path is, should I view getting married to a person that has baggage a no go? Yes. Baggage a no go. Debt, no. Manageable debt that they have a clear understanding. But if they have baggage, that person isn't ready to be married. That person need to, number one, become more mature in their understanding of the money game. And once they do that and get that under control, now they are and I use the term candidate. They are a candidate for marriage, right? And I know some people don't like that I use that term. That's okay. Just take a deep breath. They are a candidate for marriage at that point, right? This is all called maturity. You don't get to bring your immature nature into my house and expect me to fix it like you did nothing wrong, because the immature nature of you do not correct will reveal its head at another space, especially if I help you get out of debt. You next thing you know, you up at Louis Vuitton sipping tea while they go get you a $5,000 purse. Wait a minute, how did we get here? I didn't ask you how much money I make, right? And I'm not saying this from the perspective to assume, and I'm saying this because I'm a guy. I'm not saying this from a perspective to assume that women don't make money. Women make a lot of great money. So that's not what it's about anymore. It's not about let's match checkbooks and human. That's childish. Stop that, right? We're talking about two people coming together in unity. If you still want to compare straws, do that as friends. You know what I'm saying? You can compare straws and be friends all day long. But if you're trying to come together in unity and you're trying to understand how financial baggage weighs into that, yes, financial baggage is an expression of immaturity. And I cannot assume that just because you made decisions here and you have not gotten rid of it yet, that you're a changed person. Nope, that's not true. You still have it. That's how I know you're not. Well, I'm working on it. Okay, let me know when you finish working on it, and then we can have more progressive conversation. But until then, this is where we are. And that's the issue. But I don't want to just leave it there, because if I leave it there, then somebody's going to take from it whatever they want to perceive and just run to the hills with it. So I want to kind of circle back around, because we talk loneliness. a second ago. And I do believe a lot of times, we kind of, what do you call it? Shop therapy? We do that. We get lonely, we go shopping. You ain't never heard of it? Yeah. No?
You're talking about retail therapy?
Retail therapy. That's what it is. I'm sorry.
Mhm.
Yeah,
I was shaking my head. No, I don't do that.
okay. All right. All right. Well, I'm not assuming that y'all esteemed women do it. I'm just saying that that's a thing, right? That's a thing.
That's
Yeah.
immature.
That's immaturity.
Oh yeah.
Okay, very
Oh.
well. I'm glad you went there because
Mhm.
the next question is assuming, hypothetically speaking, and I'm not making it about retail therapy, but yes, I'm sorry, you're about to say something.
I just want to say that's immature, especially if you've already come together and you set boundaries for financing and you go outside of that. That's why I wanted to add. I'm sorry.
Okay. So for the person who created this baggage, this mountain of debt, and they've gotten married and they haven't replaced it, they haven't learned to overcome that immature behavior. And they view that person as their savior because they rescued me from my situation. Well, my question is chronic loneliness, and again, that's why I say it's not specifically about retail therapy, but I think it also can be focused on lonely as well. So retail therapy, lonely, whatever. But is chronic loneliness, and I don't want to focus on the term chronic because that goes to a whole higher level. Is chronic loneliness in marriage a punishment for using your spouse as a replacement for God? And I know I'm asking y'all a question that y'all have no earthly idea what is right.
Hold on, because I gotta break down it. Is chronic loneliness in marriage a punishment? Is chronic loneliness? No, now that goes back to some of the work that you have to do in some of the conversations that you need to have with your spouse. But it's not a replacement for them because you cannot make them your God. See, this is how I'm thinking about it. When I first seen the question, I said, "The joy of the Lord is my strength." So each of us has a relationship with God, and we have a relationship with each other because we are one, right? And so what affects the other is going to affect the other. So our intent is we're one. And so me using the excuse that my loneliness is something that I need to work on, and I need to let my mate, my spouse, know that these are some of the things that I'm experiencing, and I need to work on these because I know that this may be overwhelming to you, that I'm trying to replace because I'm lonely and I'm putting too much pressure on you, male or female, right? So that's the conversation and the realization that we have to come to, because if you're making someone else your God, first of all, and you're a believer, then that's some you really need to go unpack and go sit down and talk to someone about. Because it's important that you understand why you're doing this, or because it's something that you heard or you've seen example before you, and you need to be transformed from the way that you're thinking, because that is something that can be passed down, that you've observed in different environments. And so it's important that you go and you talk about those things and you're honest, because first of all, especially if you have a relationship with God, you cannot replace him with someone else. It's not going to work. Your marriage is not going to work. It's not going to be healthy, because now you are taking some misplaced understanding and placing it on someone else. Well, he said, "Cast all your cares on me, for I care for you." That's God. He casting them on God, not on the other person. So I just wanted to say that.
I do have a question because you
Okay.
said something, and I love it. And if you can just regard me for a couple of seconds here, Miss Nodella. So you made mention of going to your spouse and letting them know what you're going through. What would you be looking for in response?
Well, I think first of all, because you are one, it's something that your spouse should be aware that's going on. Because if you're keeping something hidden from them and they're identifying this behavior and they don't know what's going on, you should at least have a conversation with them, right? You're already in a covenant relationship. So it's important that they know, and you have these honest conversations. This is the part of being vulnerable. Like, I'm here. I don't know how to get from out of here. and maybe they can give you some direction, and not try to be God, but give you some direction and to help you. And because they are the head of the, if it's the wife talking to the husband, they are the head. They can go to the father. You can get instructions. So that's what I was thinking about when I mentioned that.
So
If
in
that
other
makes
words, so just awareness. You just want them to know.
sense.
Okay,
Yeah.
good. I appreciate that. All right, Sister Nadella, the floor is yours. I'm sorry.
Oh, no worries. It's a really great question. So while Lisa was talking, and I'm reading this, so because you replace God with your spouse, you're now experiencing chronic loneliness in your marriage, and that is your punishment. Um, and yes, so the question is chronic loneliness in marriage a punishment for using your spouse as a replacement for God? Yes, chronic loneliness is punishment. When we go back to the children of Israel, more specifically, when Moses went on the mountaintop to have a conversation with God, commune with God, they're down there having a party, if you will. Not only in that, but so their statement was because Moses was taking so long, they decided to take all of their gold jewelry and make a golden calf. That became their God. Why? Because Moses was taking too long talking to God. And so from that, they suffered a very hard consequence. God says, I am a jealous God, and you shall have no other God beside me. So when we replace God with other things, not just even spouse, houses, our children, our jobs, whatever, God becomes jealous. And so he will cause you to lose that job, lose, whatever, because he says, I'm a jealous God. And so when we are in a space of marriage and our spouse has taken the place of God, and when I say taking the place of God, and I believe Lisa did include this in her response, is that you're going to your spouse more than you are going to God. This is not to say you never go to your spouse and ask them, what do you think about this? What do you think about that? But there is a point where you can rely on them too much for what you should be bringing before God. And that spouse should be in a place of recognizing, hey, this is a God question. Let's take it to God. I think in some cases you send them and say, no, you need to go and pray to God about this. But then also there are times you should be with that individual and pray together as well, so that you will have an understanding, because each of your actions will impact each of you. And so my just short last answer is yes, that chronic loneliness is punishment, because you are now looking to that individual more than what you supposed to.
I love all those responses. I can agree with yes. I don't think it began there. I think the only thing they did is transferred it from one place to another. They transferred it. They transferred it from Macy's and Louis Vuitton to their spouse. They transferred it from whatever it was that they idolized prior to now that they're married. They transferred it to that person. I don't think that person became lonely when they got married. I think them being married to another person, they could not hide the fact that they were lonely anymore, because now you're in a shared space with another person who have objectivity on what's actually going on. I think there are some things that we need to be aware of when you find people And this is not demonizing a person. Again, this goes back to the fact that everybody has home work that you have to do at home before you decide to leave home and go join home with somebody else, right? I think when we see those signs, we need to make sure that we understand those signs when we see them. So if you come to me and tell me what you need me to do, that is an indicator. This is what I need from you. That's an indicator. Because, like Lisa said, we're all responsible for having our own individual relationship with the Most High. We said the last time we had this conversation, your spouse can't complete you. He is the only person, the creator is the only person who was designed, right? I'm sorry, let me say it the right way. The creator was the one who created you, and he created you so perfectly to he is the only one that fits in the space of need.
Amen.
So when you try to replace him with somebody else and you tell somebody else, well, what I need from you is this, that's that's a bell, ding, that's the indicator. Because if you miss the sign, you're going to miss the sign and you're going to pass the exit ramp and you're going to keep right on going. And you're going to run out of gas trying to figure out why you're still on the freeway because you missed the sign. That person told you back here, this is what I need from you. And because you were so infatuated with the idea of relationship, you missed the idea of connection. And the idea of connection helps you to understand whether or not that person is in the space, has the right mindset for relationship at that particular point in time. That's right, Tamika and Tyrone. If Tyrone missed it or Tamika missed it, we're going to have some issues moving forward, right? That's how it works. I hate to say it that way, and I know a lot of people don't agree with it, but probably the reason why they don't agree with it because they can see it in themselves or they saw it in themselves at one point in time. That's not a bad thing. It's not a bad thing to see something in yourself right now or see it used to be in you, but it's a space where you can thank God that I'm no longer there and I am now aware of it and I can move forward. Because if I don't see that, the only thing I'm going to do is jump. Like you're going to be like a frog hopping from lily pad to lily pad, but those lily pads are called relationships. So that's it. That was the last question. Greatly appreciate everything that everybody said during this conversation, not just on a panel, but also in the chat. And that being said, 12, we went a little long today. So I want y'all to give y'all final thoughts, but make sure that we respect the people's time because we done kept them a little long, and I want to make sure that they understand that I appreciate them staying with us through the entirety. Sister Nodella, I'm gonna start with you, and then I'll go with Lisa, and then I'm just gonna tell y'all how much I love y'all and bid y'all farewell. So first up, Sister Nodella, you have the floor.
As always, I truly love these engaging conversations. And to our chat, again, yes, you are absolutely awesome. Thank you so much for your insight, your feedback, and sharing your experiences as well. It definitely enhanced the conversation. I think in the space of as we continue to live and move throughout this life, that we should always be open to growth, to evolving, to developing. And that will look like it will come from a myriad of resources. But I want to caution each and every one of us to make sure you are vetting your sources of information. When we were growing up, those who are 40 and above, we didn't have an internet and things of that nature where we were inundated with access to so much information. But the issue is that I would say probably 30 to 40% of this information is not correct, either fully or partially. And so we have to vet the information that we're reading that's coming across our screen. I don't care who is coming through and by. No one has the full example, the full answer to everything that we desire to have knowledge of to help us live a more fulfilling and successful life. The image of the reframing of images, I'm sorry, the reframing of relationships is just one resource. We do not just throw out information. We are careful with what we share. But again, we're not the only source of information. And so I just encourage each and every one of you, as you desire to also move in the space of relationship, again, make sure you are vetting your source of information, whether it be the internet, encyclopedia, the library, or an individual. Just make sure you are vetting that information, because that will steer you further away from believing and becoming more susceptible to lies rather than the truth. Everyone, enjoy the rest of your day and weekend.
Amen. Thank you. Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you so much for this conversation. I always enjoy having this conversation, and thank you for this platform for reframing the images of relationship. I will be short, and I will say that we have to ground our relationship in prayer, and that's coming together and reading God's word as believers and brothers and sisters in Christ. Um, also, seek accountability all the time, because that's what God wants from us. He wants us to continue to be accountable for our behavior and for us to identify and share and make each other aware of what may be going on with us. Also, build and share your mission as you come together, your purpose and your intent. While you're coming together, what is your purpose? Address your past wounds, right? Have honest conversations and create the boundaries where they're needed. And remember to center your life around the gospel. There is no perfect relationship, but Christ is the only perfect person. And so know that we're all growing and we're learning, and we're going to continue to strive to be more like him. So that's my final words. Thank you so much.
Thank you guys, everybody. No, I'm not going to do any final thoughts. I just want to appreciate each and every last one of you. Everybody that's on the panel, everybody that's in the comments, whether you're on Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, it doesn't really matter. I just want you guys to know how much I appreciate you. And want you guys to understand what is coming up tomorrow. We're on TikTok tomorrow morning with the voice of reason. She is actually leading us. Always looking forward to that conversation. The Hearts of Men will be back this Friday coming up. I just want to make sure I say that. We just had a snafu last night, so I thought it would be better to not have it than to give a partial product. I don't want to waste you guys' time. I also want to make sure that I say thank you to everybody who supported us during this live conversation. Greatly appreciate you guys, Nick D, His Divine Appointment, and the Voice of Reason. You guys are awesome. And again, thank you. Everything that you guys give us, we give it right back to the community. Yes, ma'am.
I want to share that we do have, for the Empower Perspective community, we do have a website you can go to, and versus going to the TikTok shop or Amazon. Support our website. There's a lot of stuff on there, and Dwayne has done a lot of work on there to make sure that we have items that we all seek and that we're looking for. So I just want to remind, because he reminded me, I had ordered some stuff off of Amazon. I was like, I could order it from our website. So I want to keep that in our minds and forefront, to continue to support that website, and everything that we do, everything that you do in order from that website goes back into this community, so we can continue to make it better and grow. Just wanted to add that.
Well, thank you. I greatly appreciate that. Okay. Anything else? I think hearts and minds clear. Good to go?
Yeah.
All right. Very good. Listen, you guys are awesome. Enjoy the rest of your day. Enjoy your weekend if we do not see you tomorrow during Bible study or during TikTok Live. And remember to always let the best version of yourself be a blessing to somebody else.